Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 72 of the Grappling Growth podcast with me, Joe Testouri. On today's podcast, I had the pleasure of welcoming on Zachary Nunn, who is the founder of Living Corporate, an experience management company which are focused on bringing the best experience possible for Black and brown people in the workplace. Zach is an innovator. He's a pioneer in the space of AI and is actively looking at how he can implement it to scale his content, his production, and everything in between. His own podcast, he has shot over 700 episodes. So there will be a link down below so you can check it out. Enjoy this podcast.
As entrepreneurs, we all experience challenges in our business journey. I'm Joe Testouri, and the Grappling Growth podcast is my attempt at documenting my entrepreneurial journey while building my brands. I sit down with fellow entrepreneurs, understanding how they grapple with growth. I hope you find value and enjoy. Zach, pleasure to welcome you onto the show today.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
You're welcome. What does growth look like to you? I'm curious. You've just had 2 babies.
Oh man, that's such a big question. I think that growth can be fun. Growth can be slow. Growth can be fast. But there's always going to be some degree of discomfort in growth. If you're completely comfortable, and discomfort is broad, right? But like, if you don't feel like you're being pushed in any way, if you don't feel like if you're not a little scared, if you're not a little nervous, if you're not a little unsure, you're probably not growing. So when I think about the seasons of my life where I've experienced like serious growth, be it like as a person, as a professional during my corporate lifetime, or as an entrepreneur now, there's always been some elements of discomfort. It might be fun discomfort. It might be unfun discomfort, right? It might be exciting discomfort. It might be worrying or anxiety causing discomfort, but there's discomfort as that through line.
So you're talking about discomfort, which is definitely something I align with. I think that growth often comes through pain and putting yourself in pressure states. It's not going to be just sunshine and rainbows, because quite often when we're complacent, I really feel that I'm learning this from a mentor before, we go through growth and maintain cycle. So we focus on growth, then we look to level and maintain, because sometimes it's a case of you need to reflect to then understand what was good, what was bad. The perspective you spoke about, how much do you think fatherhood has changed how you thought of it? Is this always something that an ideology you followed, or is this something that has developed since you've become a father?
Yeah, so I think that I've had to embrace that ideology before fatherhood, simply because, and we talked about this off mic, like I was often one of the onlys in any corporate space I engaged, right? So, and I'm also like highly accountable. I'm probably overly accountable. And so for me, I was constantly challenging myself, like, how can I grow? How can I continue to be at the best of myself? How can I continue to innovate and adapt so that I can navigate these really exclusive spaces? I believe that, and by exclusive, I just mean one of the onlys, one of the few at that point. I mean, I'm young-ish now. I'm 35, right? But at the time, I'm talking about when I was in my early 20s, large black man in these largely white corporate spaces. I was trying to figure out, okay, what does it really look like for me to constantly be at the forefront of whatever I'm doing? What does it look like for me to continuously self-improve? And what mentorship can I seek out? What certifications can I get? What additional projects can I take on? What initiatives can I lead? What organizations can I be a part of? Right. So I was constantly thinking that way in the spirit of survival. To your question, though, fatherhood has helped to refine that and help me appreciate it even further. Fatherhood has helped me add a lens of patience and grace to growth that I probably didn't allow myself beforehand. Right. Like, to the thing you shared at the top. So I have 4 children. 2 of them are newborn twins. And something I've experienced with all my children, because the oldest one is 5 and the youngest are both 6 weeks, is that for children, growth happens every day. Like, and some days growth looks like sleeping, eating, and making a full diaper. Sometimes growth looks like learning how to read. But there are certain days where like just you being steady on a path is growth. And there's not something explosive happening. There's not fireworks that are going off. It's just you being. And I think oftentimes, historically, certainly before children, I would think of growth as what splash am I making every single day? And that's not a sustainable way to exist. You're going to burn out like that. And um, so growth, growth is you made a decision and you're going to work a plan. And that plan might be 3/4. And so that means that you might have made a quote unquote explosive decision. And then the rest of it is just you sailing forward against that decision. Those days where you're just pushing along against that plan, that's growth.
Consistency.
And yeah. And that's what I would say. That's how I would say Father is refined and I think matured my perspective there.
I think that's really sound advice. You're 5 years older than me, and I feel like I've had intrigued to get your perspective as well. But I had a bit of a mindset shift since I turned 30, and sure you're probably there 5-7 years ago, where if it felt like for a lot of young people, 30, it's really scary and it's there. But since I've got into that lens, I've really embraced it, and I've tried to slow down a little bit because, as you said, it's not all about explosion. It's not all about have to do this today and to see the results tomorrow. I've always been fairly patient, but it's about taking a few more steps back to think, okay, hopefully this is a long game. It's the sustainability is the objective and goal that we want to achieve here. And you can have quick success, and that's nice, but generally that's followed by copious amounts of dopamine hits and challenges and highs and lows with it. Whereas if you can take a step back and say, okay, what makes most sense and what's going to be best for me? For you, did you feel that sensation when you were approaching your 30s as you need to get these things figured out, and now that you're halfway through your 30s, what one word would you use to describe your 30s, and also what advice would you give to younger men who are approaching their 30s?
One word to describe my 30s. Fulfilling.
Why?
And I'd say fulfilling because my 30s are when I started having children. My 30s are when my business took a different direction and I was able to focus on it full time. I would say my 30s are when I was able to really slow down with the help of therapy and help better understand myself. And understand some of the whys behind the what that I do, or the whys behind the things that I really internalize. And so for those reasons, I would say fulfilling. And then the advice I would give to younger men who are approaching their 30s is that, and I was right there. I felt the same way. Hey man, I'm about to turn 30. I got to get it together. And let me say this, Joe, like I'm somebody that I feel like my whole life I've been in a rush to be grown. Right. So like I got married at 23. That's when I bought my first home. I paid off my first home in my 20s. I bought my second home.
Congratulations. That's a big feat.
Thank you. But I don't say that to flex. I'm saying it like I just always was I feel like I've always been like, I got it. And it's like, I think the advice I'd really give to young men who are coming in their 30s is like, just continue to give yourself grace. Yes, you're going to be in your 30s. Yes, that is not, the 30s and your 20s are not the same. However, slow down and appreciate the days that you have, right? I think sometimes we think about our lives in like this like story that has to end at a certain page, but we don't really know how long our books are. And so there are times that I wish when I was in my 20s that I would have given myself the grace to like enjoy my days more. but I grind it so hard that there are times there's parts of my life that I look back and I'm like, man, I wish I would have had a better time during that time, but I was too anxious about this, or I was too upset about this, or I was too worried about that, or I was too tired from overworking trying to achieve this. When in reality, I could have achieved my goals all the same and had a little bit more fun. And it's hard to realize that when you're in it. But man, like, give yourself the space and grace to just have fun. Give yourself grace and space to enjoy the day, because tomorrow isn't promised.
So what if what if 20-year-old Zach said, yeah, cool, that's all well and good. How do I do this though? You say take a break. Like for me, what does a break look like? Because for a lot of young people, a break looks like going to a bar on a Friday, Saturday night and just
Sure.
drinking. Like now you can reflect. What does that actually look like tangibly?
Yeah, I think tangibly, I think a break looks like doing things that are rewarding to you and just you. Doing things that help, that make you, that you walk away and you feel good about what you did. I think for me, like, I spent a lot of times playing Madden, playing video games. I spent a lot of times just kind of like vegging out. And like, look, there's definitely space to just do nothing. Like that is good, to just give yourself space to do nothing. I wish I would have walked more. I wish I would have taken more hikes. I read a decent amount, but I wish I would have read more books. I wish I would have checked in with my family members more and just talk to them. With my grandparents, I wish I would have spent more time with them in my 20s. I think when I talk about taking a break or resting, what I mean is taking steps or doing activities that are not directly related to you making money or advancing your career, right? Like, there's a whole world out there to experience and live and explore. If you have a significant other, like, continuing to get to know them. I was blessed, like I said earlier, I got married fairly young, right? But everybody's situation is different. It's just about like decentering yourself. I think so much of my 20s was me being the executive producer and director and leading star in my own movie. And that can be exhausting. It's like, hey, every now and then it's okay to just slow down and like look and engage others for a second. Everything doesn't have to be about you. Everything isn't about your goals at every second of the day. Give yourself some space, breathe, enjoy the moment, and then get back to it. You know what I mean?
Are you familiar with the work of Dr. Gabor Mate?
No.
He's I don't want to get this wrong. I think he's a physician. He was born in 1944, so he's Hungarian, and so was born in World War II. Some fascinating work that he's done, but he mentioned a point about a study. So there, not really like a meta study, but it was a woman who was a nurse, and she essentially self-published the 5 biggest regrets of dying people. So she was working at a care home for people who were dying. A hospice is the word. And one of the biggest regrets was people didn't live a life that was fulfilling to them. And another one was they didn't actually do the things they wanted to do. So it's kind of two in the same. But that shows that it's often in this introspection further down the line where you can see the wood from the trees and understand what's important. And I think there's a big notion amongst the younger you are, the harder you have to work, which I definitely abide by. The principle of hard work pays off, and it does have an impact on your life. And your goals won't just be achieved if you just manifest them and you try to meditate for 20 minutes a day. You actually have to put the action in. And I think there's a gap now where a lot of young people have these very grandiose goals, but they're not putting the work in to do it. And when they do spend their leisure time, it's often on social media and it's drinking, and it's I kind of put in this bucket of quick dopamine releases. Anything that can just you're just I can't even think of the game where you've got a little stick and you're going around and it gives you electric shocks. Maybe you know the one I'm talking about, but I'm talking about that. And it's every time you touch it, it just gives you a shock. But the point is it's trying to get to that point, which I think it takes people some time to get to the point where you said about hiking and walking and spending time with your grandparents, because we know they won't be around forever, and it's about figuring out things that work more towards releasing slower doses of maybe endorphins, so to speak, which exercise is perfect for. You feel better after it generally compared to before. So that's really, really helpful advice. I think not only 20-year-old Zach could follow, but a lot of young people can follow. Maybe in 5 years' time, you'll play this podcast to your children when they've got a
Maybe
bit more
so.
content. Hey,
Maybe so.
actually, take some more time, enjoy these moments. And how often? I mean, I just as you were talking about your children, I was thinking back to my childhood, playing in the park, and thinking of the days where I'd go after school, and it was so exciting. But at the time, you're probably worrying about just silly things that mean nothing, but just actually enjoying the moment. Makes so much sense.
No, I mean, look, as I think also a part of getting older is seeing like other people die around you, right? You end up outliving other people. And most people who are probably listening to this, they've outlived somebody, right? Like there's someone, that a younger person, it's sad. Like there's someone you've outlived. And you just continue to get older and you see more and more people. Oh man, that person was 30. They passed away. Oh, this person was whatever. They passed away. And so it's like, you go to more funerals and you just start realizing like, man, like what is my focus? Like, what am I doing with my time? And how am I making the dash in between these numbers count? And you sometimes like, it's like, oh, I'm doing all this so I can retire by 60. Okay. But what if you die at 40? So that's great. It's great to plan. Look, I am obsessed with the future to a fault, right? Like I am obsessed with the future. There's plenty of things I'm trying to do so that by the time I'm 80, I can do whatever. But it's like, hey man, I also gotta give myself grace and space to appreciate today because I might not make it to 80.
Yep. So well said. So just taking a bit of a shift, I know that you've got your own podcast and you're doing a lot of really cool things, and I can see from behind that you're very inquisitive. So for a newfound entrepreneur, someone who wants to get their leg up in the business space, what are, I don't know, 2 or 3 business books you'd recommend to listeners right now?
Man, I'm gonna be honest, Joe. Like, I don't know if I have a lot of business books.
Okay, what's in the library, let's say?
Yeah. So there's a book written by Dr. Mark Lamont Hill called Nobody.
Okay.
And it's an examination of America and its policies and institutions that undermined Black experience in this nation over time. There's a book called All About Love by Bell Hooks that really just talks about the concept of love and breaks it down across various eras and social hierarchies. It's just talking about like, okay, how does love exist for Black men? Where was love during the civil rights movement? I enjoy that. There's another book called Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates that examines just America and its racism. And the reason why, like, I'm naming some of these books, there's The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. Like, there's the books that I really enjoy. Mm-hmm. The reason why I'm naming these books that are more like they're non-fictional and they're also like more like examinations of America's system, is because for me as a founder and the work that I do, how I serve and help others is important. And so like I like reading books that give me some historical grounding and context into the world in which I engage. I'm an American. Most of the business and work I do is in America. We have clients that are international, but those international clients have offices also in America. So I'm big on leading with empathy, and I appreciate books that empower my empathy. And so for me, books that critically examine the systems within which we work and exist help me then understand, okay, what kind of force do I want to then be in the world? And how can I leverage my influence and power through my business, which is really just an extension of my purpose, to help better shape the world. So that's how I think. Those are really kind of the books I read. Now that doesn't mean I listen to podcasts, like how I built this. You know, there's different pods and things I listen to. There's articles I'll read, there's webinars I'll watch. But when it comes to probably like sitting down and reading a book, I'm probably going to be reading something that examines like society.
You I made a mental note. You told me about your father and your grandfather when we spoke last week. And you said that your father was the first person in his family to read, right?
My grandfather was the first person in my family to read. My father taught my grandfather how to read. Yes. So I'm a second generation reader.
So for you, I'm sure that's something you take a lot of pride in. And talking about growth and fatherhood and just everything you've encompassed there, how would you say that your father's kind of because that would have been hard. The first person to do anything is always the hardest because you've got less reference point to work off. How would you say his character and his kind of desire to learn has shaped your first for the knowledge that you've consumed, what you've gone out there for, and then equally to build a business with empathy, because that's so important and it's rare actually. So many people are just focused on revenue and money, top line.
Yeah, I think so. When I was a little kid, I would say, let's say I try to do something, I don't know, whatever it is, trying to do a trick on my bike, or I'm trying to play a game, and I would say, I can't do that. I can't do it. And my dad would say, your grandfather killed Kant a long time ago. You can do whatever you want. And it took me a while to understand that. But my grandfather would tell my dad, when my dad would say, I can't do something, he'd be like, hey, I killed Kant. I killed him. So you Kant's not your problem anymore. You don't have to worry about Kant.
What was the phrase you used about your grandfather? He what?
My grandfather would say, I killed, like when you'd say, hey, I can't do it. My grandfather said, I killed Kant. Like he personified Kant as a person. He said, I killed Kant.
Okay, he killed
Kant isn't, he said, Kant isn't a problem for you because I killed him. He's out of your way. So you can do whatever you want.
Sure.
And so that became a thing that my dad would then say to me. And that's something I'm going to tell my children as well. But it's this idea, like, so my grandfather had, even with his really limited education, he was able to have a really long career at John Deere, and then he built a real estate empire in Rock Island, Illinois. It was because my father and my uncles helped him read and understand contracts that he was able to do all the legal work. So when you ask about kind of what I've learned, I think there's a legacy of tenacity and resilience that my dad carries from his father. And when I think about my life today and the things I'm trying to do and trying to achieve, I think about resilience. I think about just not giving up. I think about adapting, because those are the things that I saw modeled from my father. And so, I think there's like, the world is really, really hard. I also believe that the world rewards adaptive people. I do. I think that if you can show an ability to adapt, it's attractive. It's not attractive to everybody,
Mm-hmm.
but it's going to attract the right number of people for you to continue forward. And that's something I learned from my father quite a bit. And it's something I'm really proud of as it pertains to how I navigate as a founder and just as a person.
Love that. Well said. So, talking about how your father built his empire and what he learned and everything there, I imagine that was a big inspiration, and he was one of your, if not your biggest role model in life. Looking at living corporate and building a business that's built off empathy on that point, how did you make that the infrastructure as to what you do today?
Yeah. So context, right, is Living Corporate is an experience management company focused on workplace fairness. And we support organizations in their journey to be more fair, not just for their employees, but creating fair and trusting experiences for their customers through brand storytelling, a dynamic e-learning platform that can be adapted for all sorts of stakeholders and situations, and data transformation, right? So we can take in your customer experience data, your sentiment data, your HR data, your people data. We can stitch it all together and give you predictive analytics to help you understand what's coming around the corner. We can do that at an economically uh, rewarding price, and we can do that at speed. At speed, I'm talking about a week to 2 weeks. Okay. But we got to Live in Corporate from, like, that's the end of the story. The beginning of the story is that I entered the world of work as one of the onlys, right? So to your point, yes, I did not. I'm the second person. I'm the second man to graduate from college, period, on my mom's side of the family. The first man to start and graduate from a four-year university, and I'm a second generation reader on my dad's side of the family. So when I graduated from the University of Houston in 3 years, I didn't have a super organic network to help me understand how to navigate the world of work and to help me get a job. I was just out there making it work on my own. So I was in the HR space because I've always been passionate about people. And I continue to grow empathy for just wanting to help and support people. And then selfishly, Joe, or just transparently, I also wanted to help me. I wanted to grow. I wanted to learn. I wanted a space that would help, would affirm me and advocate for me, that would educate me and tell me the truth, and not just the sanitized HR stuff, like the real talk of how to navigate the space, right? And that's where Living Corporate came from. Living Corporate came from the idea of really authentically and frankly discussing the world of work and how work needs to be better, how leaders need to show up, what employees can do to be at their best, right? Living Corporate started as a singular podcast that was challenging the status quo and having really frank conversations with power brokers. Over time, it grew from just a podcast into this experience management firm that I described. And so for me, empathy was always at the heart of it, because it was always about speaking to the needs of the employee and not necessarily patting the back of, like, the corporate executive class. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So it started as a podcast, essentially. Did it become a business by chance, or was that kind of the strategy from the podcast?
I would say that it started as a passion project. So I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to sit back and say that when I started Living Corporate in 2018 as a podcast, that I thought in 2021 or 2020 it would be a whole business, right? I was just thinking about it being a pod. And as time went on, I started kind of seeing, okay, wait a minute. Because my background is human resources change management. I'm working for major consulting firms, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Capgemini,
Mm-hmm.
Accenture. So I'm learning as I'm going, right? So earlier we talked about being in your 20s. So Living Corporate started in 2018. So I was 29, right? And so I'm still like I'm in career, but I'm not like super senior. And I'm learning and trying to figure out, okay, wait, I'm picking up new skills. Wait, I know how to do this. I know how to facilitate learning. I know how to create e-learning. I know how to analyze data. I understand what effective reporting looks like. I'm already doing storytelling. I know how to present and I speak well. I can do all these things. And so as I
Mm-hmm.
was looking for and trying to create a space for me, Joe, that was outside of the corporate space, outside of corporate America, outside of a 9 to 5, I just decided that, hey, I have enough things existing out here based on my own experience that I could bring inside of this other business that I actually control. And I can create my own path that way. But that was not my clear vision 7 years ago. It came into fruition over time.
And with everything you've done now, what's the talking about growth and artificial intelligence? What's how do you acquire clients now, engage in your relationships, and how is AI playing a part in that?
Yeah. So living corporate, look, we cut our teeth on being a podcast. And like you and I have connected through your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I still believe that podcasting is an excellent lead generation tool.
Absolutely.
If you know how to speak and you know how to have a good conversation, then it's a great way to build leads. And so while we have some lead generation forms, I mean, I'm actually looking at this one that we just built, and we're going to be doing some, we're going to open up a cold emailing strategy, and so we can just increase pipeline. We're going to do those things. I would say 95% of the clients that we've attained have been through the podcast, and the reason why is because I believe it's hard. If an executive is willing to sit down with you for 30, 45 minutes, 60 minutes, and they appreciate the conversation that you had with them, it's hard for them to then say no to getting a proposal, because we just got done speaking for 30, 45, 60 minutes about something you and I both agree is needed, and
Mm-hmm.
agreed that there's a gap in fulfilling. I've also demonstrated in that conversation, albeit passively, that living corporate can be a solution to the thing that you've articulated you need help in. So then after the conversation's over and I press the little red button to end the pod, and I say, hey, I would love just to send you some information on living corporate. As I think about what we've discussed today, I believe that we could be a match for this, that, and the third. Is it possible for us to do a demo? Overwhelmingly, the answer is yes. Right. And I would hope that people who are listening to this, like, again, I said I was going to do a cold. We're working on cold email campaigns, but I would hope that you understand that, especially in today's market, that personal relationship and touch, that goes exponentially further than flooding somebody's spam inbox, than making a bunch of assumptions, than just harassing people online. Like, figure out how you can build a connection with people. And I think the other part about the podcast, which is why people enjoy it, is there is a value exchange.
Uh-huh.
Your podcast has an audience. Even if your podcast doesn't have an audience, it's a digital asset that we're creating together that I can then share with my audience. So even if at the very least it's an opportunity to add to my portfolio of promotion. And so you're offering value to somebody. People are much more willing to speak with you and sit down with you if they feel like they're getting some value out of that time. And a podcast does that. Your question about how does AI fit into what we do. You know, kind of goes back to, I talked about the e-learning platform. You know, some years ago, this is back when Living Corporate probably had like 600 or 700 podcast episodes. I had to ask myself, I think I was chewing a piece of gum, actually, Joe. And I was chewing the gum, and the gum stopped being sweet, and I spit it out. And I said, I said, this gum. I chewed it for maybe like 10 minutes, maybe. And I spit it out. I was like, what is the lifespan of a podcast episode? It's kind of similar, right? Like, you drop a pod on Tuesday, we might talk about it on Friday, but we're probably listening to something else on Friday. On Friday, maybe I'm sharing the pod with a couple of people who missed it. But a podcast episode, the lifespan of a single podcast episode is not that long. Like, I was telling somebody, Barack Obama and the boss, I forgot his name, they created a podcast together. Barack Obama. And it came and went. Like, nobody, like, I can't even remember. Like, now I have to look and see. I feel bad. Now I got to look up this person's name. But Barack Obama and this person, they came together and made a podcast. And no one turns around and goes, hey, remember that podcast in 2022? We should go listen to that right now. Say it again. Yes, Bruce Springsteen.
Renegades.
Yeah. Yes, Renegades. There we go. No one cares about Renegades Born in the USA. Like, use this as an example, Joe. Like, I've been thinking about this, and every time I bring this up, I always forget the name of the podcast because no one cares. And that's no disrespect to Bruce Springsteen or Barack Obama. It's just the nature of digital media that they're quick. So why am I saying all of this? I'm saying all this because I had to ask myself, okay, I took the time to record all these podcasts, and I'm sitting on a library of all these podcasts. Is there value at all in this podcast library? Because also, and you know this as someone who's in the space, people also don't download super old podcasts either, right? Unless something happens, people aren't going back to download your podcast from 2 years ago. They're looking at your most recent podcast, especially as podcast download rules continue to change. It's just not the same. You know, you know, let's say you drop a podcast, maybe the first day it's going to spike. It's going to be maybe 300, 400. Then it's going to go down to 30, 15, 15, 15, 15, 10, 1, 0. And it's going to be 0 or 1 moving forward. So I said, okay, what do we do with Living Corporate's podcast in this library? And so what we decided to do was build an AI engine. And this was like 2.5 years ago. Mm-hmm. We decided to build an AI engine that could ingest the podcast transcript and then turn them into e-learning modules. And then take those e-learning modules and put them on a custom Spotify type platform that we also built from scratch. And then when we sell a subscription to that, to enterprise businesses. So just like you go to Spotify and you might want to make a rock and roll playlist or a smooth 80s playlist, we have our own platform that takes all of the podcasts we've ever done, and you can go in there and you can click a lesson, and you're going to get the audio and or video. You're going to get the summary. You're going to get action items for leaders and discussion questions, and you're going to get the whole transcript. And you can then search and so you can make a playlist on inclusive leadership or supporting women at work or Hispanic Heritage Month or Indigenous Peoples Month or Veterans Month, right? It's you can make a playlist on supporting mental health at work, because our library is so vast and covers so many different topics that we've essentially created something that people can use. And so what happens is we have clients who go into the system, Joe, they'll make a playlist, and then they'll take that playlist and they'll share it with their employees on their company intranet page, or they'll put it in their company newsletter, or they'll put it into some type of communicado for some type of cultural awareness moment. And so that's where AI is for us. We believe that AI is a valuable tool to enrich experience. We'll probably do another pod about a lot of how AI is being presented is problematic and misleading. But AI does have a function and purpose in business, and it certainly has helped us. It was the founding power behind one of our offerings.
That fascinating. You've as someone who consults businesses with regards to AI, and we talk about content innovation, you've actually taught me a lot there. You've shown me a new facet of how we could, even for ourselves, as you said, this content does become redundant. I look at our podcast episodes from 2 years ago, and first off, I cringe. I think that was awful. My interview skills are terrible. But I guess that's the essence of growth. You want to be looking at yourself 2 years ago and think that was
if you don't look at yourself from before, then it's like you should kind of be a little embarrassed by your early content for sure.
Yeah, 100%. So there's that, but then equally thinking of how do we, the content's produced, that's the hardest bit. It's, as you said, you sit down for 30, 45 minutes and then look at producing this content. How do we stretch this evergreen content? Because it can be stretched, and we're looking at all of our ideas, such as, and a lot of it is just bandwidth, but do we get the transcripts, make this into a short form email? Do we use it for content natively, but how else do we make it further? And as you said, you've made it a native educational platform there. And then, I think this is a 73rd podcast we're doing. So you've basically got 10x on us. So you've got a lot of literature and libraries which you can transcribe, and there's so many potholes and avenues that you can go down that if that was to be essentially scrubbed and cleaned up and sharpened, that once people who need relevant help, you've got that content there. So that's really impressive with what you're doing. So just kind of stretching onto that point a little bit more, how can people find this content? If I was there and I was in the market, how would I go and find this content right now?
Yeah, so you go to living-corporate.com or just Google Living Corporate.
Yep.
And you'll be able to find work with us, right? And we have a whole form. We make ourselves really available. You want to book a demo, want to learn more about how we do the work that we do. We're not hard to find, right? So if you just search Living Corporate, or if you want to be more specific, work.living-corporate.com, you will see a page full of case studies, testimonials, brands that we've worked with, and also a form that's very easy to fill out to take you to our Calendly and book a demo with us. And we're happy to meet with you and talk to you about what it is you need.
Amazing. Zach, thank you so much for your time. Where can people find you? We're going to put all the links in, and what's next for you and the company.
Yeah. So you can find me on LinkedIn, right? Zachary Nunn is my full name. So feel free. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure if you Google Zachary Nunn, I should pop up also. But I'm on LinkedIn. Just get at me. You know what? If you really want to talk to me directly, email me at zach@living-corporate.com. I will see how much I regret sharing that, but we'll see. Feel free to reach out to me. Happy to connect with anybody. And then as it pertains to what's next for me in this company, look, Living Corporate is going to continue forward. It's no secret that small businesses in this season are struggling, right? I mean, thankfully, Living Corporate continues to move forward, and we have some great clients and a really healthy pipeline. However, we're really just focused on delivering value. And so what's next for us is just continuing on our path, continuing to hone, again, our brand storytelling capabilities, our e-learning platform, and our data transformation work. And if you're a client if you're somebody that's looking to help either drive your employee engagement or help build out your market trust and build a better and continue to build trust with your customers, Living Corporate's that partner. And then I think on a personal tip, I think, Joe, like, it's weird because Living Corporate is a business and it's not closing its doors. At the same time, its founder and CEO is on like a bit of a paternity leave. So I'm like doing this weird balancing act between resting and also continuing to drive business, And so I think personally what's next for me is probably the rest of this year is like staying pretty close to home. Because my wife can't raise these 4 kids all by herself. And so, so I'm sure when we connect the next time, I'll probably have more lessons to share about what I learned as a first time paternity leave guy. It's my first paternity leave with my own company. So next time, maybe I'll be able to drop some gems on that.
Appreciate it, Zach. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.